Hello folks, this is Tom from anti-proton.com, and I'm here to quickly review the Rokinon 8mm fisheye. And I'd like to point out the very first annoying thing about this. I love this lens, but this lens cap, did you just see what happened? Okay, I know you're going to think that was set up, but it really wasn't. It literally just falls right off. It's very annoying, the lens cap. See? You shake it a little bit, like put it down, it should pop off again. Okay, well it's not popping off, so whatever. Anyway, so this right here is the Rokinon 8mm fisheye lens, and as you can see, it is an 8mm fisheye lens. What that means is that it has a 167-degree field of view, so it has a very wide field of view. I actually like this lens. Now, I have this in an old Rebel G, like, film camera, and the reason I put it on this film camera is because my good camera is what's currently doing the recording, so it sort of behooves me to use this camera instead as a result. So let's pull this off for a minute, and let's take a look at this lens and see what kind of features it has. Alright, so looking carefully at the camera, we can see a couple things right off the bat. Its f-stops are f3.5 to f22, and it makes a nice click. Click, 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 click. You can really feel it, especially in the dark if you're working with this for nighttime photography. It's nice to feel that little click. So, another benefit is if you're doing long-term exposures in the middle of the night, you want to automatically just kind of change this over time to adjust for the lightness as it becomes darker. You can just reach over and do that. You don't have to worry about looking at the actual camera to do it. I know that's kind of a silly thing to say because you're thinking, well, you know, I like automatic aperture, I don't like manual. You're just kind of trying to make manual sound good. But, you know, there's something nice to be said about manual. I don't know, I started in medium format days and stuff, so that's just me. You know, I'm actually not actually that old. So anyway, this thing has infinity all the way down to about a foot or so. Is that a foot? Yep, a little bit less than a foot. So this thing can get really close and personal, but honestly, most of the time, infinity is going to be your focus. This thing is extremely, really wide open in the focus. I mean, you can put this on infinity and you can basically focus on just about anything. You will almost never be out of focus. That's an interesting property of fisheye lenses, especially this guy. So here you can see it has this humongous, wide, giant glass element up here in the front. This comes off. I've had troubles getting it off. There we go. Ta-da! This is a little lens hood, which I like it just fine. I don't have any problems with it. It seems to work out pretty well. Snaps back into place. On a full-frame camera, you can pull this lens hood off and you get a nice, one of those nice circular-looking views. If you leave it on, it'll work perfectly fine, especially if you're on a APS-C, which is what I'm on, an APS cropped sensor, which most people, unless you're like a hardcore photographers, you know, with expensive equipment, you're probably going to be on something like an APS-C, unless you have the expensive stuff. So anyhow, I'm going to show you some pictures so you can see what it looks like. The big thing about this lens is it's cheap. I don't mean cheap in quality, I mean cheap in price. You know me, I like inexpensive lenses. For example, this guy right here, this, oops, let me get a little closer here. This, what is this guy here? This Yongnuo, no, Yongnuo, I never say it right. Now I'll get like 100 comments explaining how to say this correctly. This little 35mm prime was 89 bucks, and let me tell you something, I adore this lens. It has its faults, it has its bad things, but every now and then you find a cheap lens that's good. A lot of them are total garbage, by the way, cheap lenses, and you probably, if you've ever bought one, you know. They're so tempting because the price is so low, you know, they're hundreds cheaper than the competition. This guy right here is a good one, though. I was really worried when I bought it because it's hundreds cheaper than the competition, because it retails for about $250, $300, yet it really, 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 really puts out for the price. Now, the contrast is a little soft, which is kind of a property you'll notice with almost all cheaper lenses. The contrast is always kind of soft. There's a little bit of coma around the edge whenever you're looking. You get some distortions around the edge. Maybe a touch of vignetting, just a little bit. but it's pretty clear. I don't get too bad distortions. Chromatic aberration's not too bad either. Now, if you're shooting stars at night, if you put your white balance onto tungsten light setting, somewhere like around, what is it, maybe 50, I think it's around 5300 Kelvin, somewhere in there, that'll get rid of most of the chromatic aberration that you're going to pick up. But this is not an APO lens, so this guy will get some chromatic aberration. Now, I use it for photographing like the stars at night, for photographing the galaxy, that kind of thing. So that's what I'm really mainly interested in. If you get really close up on somebody, you get these really beautiful distortions. I will show you now photographs and you can see what it looks like for yourself. All in all, this is a required lens. You have to get this guy. It's Rokinon. I'm not vouching for the rest of their stuff, just this one lens. I think Samyang and maybe a couple others may make the same product. I think they may be the same company. This is the Fisheye CS2. I think there may be a 3 out there as well. Everything on this feels pretty tight, pretty well built. Nothing's loose. This is nice and smooth with a good feel coming back to it. It's nice and firm, like you can't do it very easily with one finger, because it's good and firm. So it feels pretty good. It feels pretty well built. It doesn't feel plastic and cheap, except for this. This lens cap feels plastic and cheap as hell. That's the only part in the entire lens that feels that way. But otherwise, I say it's a pretty good buy. I consider this indispensable if you're going to do long-term exposures at night, and especially if you're going to do time-lapse. If you want to catch like all the meteorites in the sky, we have meteor showers that occur and you just point the sky up and you'll catch them all. Just click, 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 take photographs all night with it and put them all together, time-lapse. So it takes a little bit of work getting used to how the focusing works, because the focusing is really creepy. Like it's not like a smooth progression the way you think it would be. You literally want to hit that zoom in button and double check the focusing is absolutely perfect before moving forwards. But other than that, I think it's pretty good.